Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film, and sometimes television. So we just watched Season 4, Episode 4 of Black Mirror, Hang the DJ, which...
It's the lobster! Out of all the things to ever say about Black Mirror, I would not have thought that I would ever say that it's unoriginal.
There are some Black Mirror episodes that are derivative of other works, but this one was a lot more apparent. So this episode is about two characters, Frank and Amy, who, essentially sign up to this matchmaking service, which they're paired up with somebody, and then a little device tells them how long they're going to be in the relationship. And then they act accordingly, and then once the time is up, they have to move on to another relationship. They don't get to choose in any way, shape, or form who the relationship is with. They just kind of have to deal with it until the relationship status is over.
Yeah. And then the big thing at the end is it's all a simulation.
Which is definitely piggybacking off of the first episode this season, USS Callister, where the characters are essentially simulations.
Yeah, but I've just been really disappointed this season. Like, Archangel was phenomenal, like one of their best. But USS Callister had, it had one of the weakest messages of any Black Mirror episode, and I fundamentally didn't agree with it. And then there was Archangel, which I thought was amazing. And then there was Crocodile, which was the most emotionally uninvolving episode, where I actually used the word dumb to describe it, which I never thought would happen. And then there's this episode where the acting is good and the ideas are solid, but I can't help but think about how it's exactly like The Lobster in every way except for the ending, which I think is significantly less interesting and profound than the ending for The Lobster. So I don't enjoy being disappointed with one of my all-time favorite TV shows. I don't like this at all. I'm getting very upset about this, quite honestly.
Well, I will say that right now it's given me a little bit of anxiety because I know there are only 2 episodes left of this season. So I'm hoping that it delivers a lot more. I did actually kind of like this episode. I like some of the ideas expressed. Granted, a lot of it was similar to The Lobster, but there were some interesting ideas that the episode brought up. Like this idea that you're stuck with somebody who you don't want to have a relationship with, and then just looking at the time that you have together. And I thought that was an interesting concept. Certainly The Lobster has it set up a little bit different, not too much different, because if you don't...
The only difference is that they don't have a bisexual mode, and this simulation does. It's still the same thing of you're in a secluded society where you have to follow their rules, and they, a mate will be selected, and if a mate is not selected, then you will be cast out over the wall into the wilderness. It's the same idea, except for in The Lobster, when you go into the wilderness and into the real world, it's actually a lot more dark and dangerous and unassuming. Whereas this one, it's just oh, that's nice. Happy ever after.
Sort of my understanding of this episode was this is the simulation provided so that the 2 people in the real world don't have to go through those things. And it's sort of like this alternate reality simulation of that, except we're in the perspective of the simulation, which that's an interesting idea. I kind of think it would have been more interesting if it wasn't just a reveal, but showed the 2 having the relationship and the simulations going on. And that would have given it a much more different feel than having that as a reveal at the end, which would make it certainly feel a lot less like The Lobster.
Well, I also don't like this idea of, the simulation happening to protect them from being hurt and from breaking up and going through all these relationships, because that was the whole thesis for Archangel, was that you need that experience. You need to have that pain in your life. And from an ideological standpoint, I subscribe a lot more to that idea than to this idea of like, oh, wouldn't it be better if you just didn't have to date and you just didn't have to deal with heartbreak and you just had a program tell you what you want and they figured it all out so you don't have to feel any of those things. I don't like any of that.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever tried online dating?
No, I haven't. I have not heard of a single success story personally from anyone I know.
Yeah, I've been on a couple online dates because when I was in the military, it was slim pickings. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I would try to stay as far away from dating anybody who was in the military just because, at least for me, I don't like to shit where I eat. That being said, it is interesting because sometimes you'll look at somebody's profile and you'll just be like, oh, I think this person matches me. And, it's like we have similar tastes and all that kind of stuff. And then like you meet them and it's totally different. And, I do like meeting people in real life and having a relationship form, outside of that kind of structure. I know that some people like that structure, but I'm not one of those people that just attaches myself to somebody just because we like the same things. I mean, I've met people very similar to me and I can't get along with them. Mm-hmm. I did think the episode brought some interesting ideas. Like one thing that I thought was possibly the most interesting idea that it brought up was the consent button.
Yeah.
Because, like, in this circumstance, like, I could see that some people would be turned off from sex. While we don't see this in the episode, I could see some people becoming less and less interested in sex as their relationships went forward. And I understand, like, some other people, most likely, I was going to say most likely guys, but there are plenty of women that like quick and fast relationships. But, I could see some people like really enjoying the experience of like not having to be attached.
But they probably wouldn't be signing up for this program.
Right. Especially with all the like stringent rules and such. So I that's pretty much it. I didn't get a lot out of this episode. It brought up some interesting ideas, but like I would strongly recommend to you, if you haven't seen it, watch The Lobster.
Well, also, I think the other thing, too, was, how we kind of compared Archangel to the entire history of You, but Archangel was, like, expanding on a lot of the same ideas. This felt a lot like San Junipero, but a lot less developed.
Yeah.
And that is what really worries me.
And I'm partly curious that... since the original model was, I think, 3 episodes a season, mm-hmm. and now they've doubled that, if that might have affected the show. Yeah.
It kind of feels like Moby Dick style filler.
Which is not to say that I'm not excited about another season of this, because...
No, absolutely not. Like, yes, please, like, keep watching Black Mirror, keep supporting Black Mirror. I'm not saying, like, oh my god, I'm giving up on the show now.
Yeah, and
flipping over tables. Like, no. No.
And I will say, like, even the most disappointing episode of Black Mirror is oftentimes better than most things on television. Mm-hmm. And plus, you don't have to stick with it. Stick with an individual story, which I like that aspect. So, like, if one episode isn't jiving with you, you're not stuck with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's face it, even Twilight Zone had a huge number of like complete dud episodes.
The robot episodes.
Yeah, but like I don't think that there's any episode of Black Mirror that's like a complete dud or anything like that. I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, at least not yet. But I wouldn't go that far.
So, what did you think of Hang the DJ? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll have another episode discussion out soon. Thanks for listening.